So, good morning, everybody. My name is Ben. I'm a Vice President, Charity and Community at Oxford SU. I just finished my geography degree at St Catherine's, and I am your chair for today's session. And this session is what to expect as a student, how Oxford is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're really pleased to have three people with us on the panel today to be able to talk you through plans and what's in place. So we have Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Education, Professor Martin Williams. We have Janet Royall, co-chair of the Michaelmas Coordination Group and principal of Somerville College. And we have Nikita, president of Oxford SU. I'm going to hand over to Martin first to talk through some of the aspects from his side. If you have any questions throughout, you can use the Q&A function just to pop a question into the question box, and we will get to those all at the end of the session, and I'll be chairing going through those. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Martin.
Okay, thank you very much. It's fantastic to be here. First thing I want to say is welcome to everyone and enormous congratulations on getting to Oxford. It's not an easy thing to do, so well done to all of you. As I'm sure you know, Oxford is ranked very highly in various league tables. I'm not sure how much credibility we put on those, but it's always nice to come top. And particularly, we were thrilled this year to be named University of the Year by the Times and the Sunday Times. And in doing that, they focused on two things. Particularly, they said that was because of all the work the university's been doing to support the response to COVID. And I'm sure many of you will be aware of some of the fantastic research, particularly our medical colleagues are doing on that. And also because of the massive progress we've made on access, which has been obviously a big priority and a big focus on Oxford in recent years. And I think we're all really thrilled at the progress we're making on that. So if you're an undergraduate tuning in here, you are one of our most diverse intake ever. And we're absolutely thrilled about that. We've got more students than ever from state schools, more from disadvantaged backgrounds, more women. We don't know the ethnicity data yet, but I think we're fairly confident that we've done quite well on that front as well. We're delighted about that. It means we're now attracting brilliant students from backgrounds where we might not have been able to reach them before, and that will make Oxford a better and a stronger university. And similarly at postgraduates, if you're a postgrad tuning in, congratulations on getting in. Getting into Oxford as a postgraduate is getting more and more competitive every year. Application numbers go up 8% every year. So if you've got in as a postgrad, you also should be enormously proud of your achievements. The other thing I just wanted to say quickly was congratulations to the SU for putting together this whole virtual fair. I think it's fantastic. I had a little tour of it a couple of days ago, and I was so impressed with what you've done. So I hope everyone participating is really enjoying it. So I don't want to say a huge amount about teaching and health measures. I want to talk very briefly about what you can expect in terms of teaching and learning this year, and also say something about the health regime we've put in place this year. But I want to keep it quite brief and leave time to answer people's questions. So first of all, on teaching, obviously, I'm sure you're all aware that this is not going to be a normal university year, and it's not a normal year anywhere. That's just a situation beyond our control. But people across the university have been working enormously hard to put us together as good and as stimulating a mix as possible of teaching and other activities to support you to make the most of being in Oxford. Of course, you'll be aware that teaching is going to be a mix of in-person and online. We're really trying to maximize the in-person part of that because I think that does add value to what we can offer. But you'll understand that we have to be flexible. Conditions are going to change throughout the year. We're going to have good periods and bad periods in terms of the prevalence of the pandemic in our community, and everyone's safety has to come first. Last term, of course, we did have a fully remote term. We did a lot of online teaching and all our assessment was moved to a remote form. we think we did a pretty good job in really very trying circumstances. And student satisfaction wasn't bad. I think one of the really striking pieces of feedback from students, though, was just how difficult they found it to motivate themselves when they're basically working from their bedroom at home in isolation, away from other students, away from the scholarly community of Oxford. So I think, you know, that is a really strong reason for students to be in Oxford. It's not just about the face-to-face teaching, it's about all the other aspects of being in a scholarly community, of access to labs and libraries and good quality study space, the chance to interact with each other, discuss your work and support each other. And I think these are all really important aspects of Oxford that go beyond just the direct face-to-face teaching with academic staff. I think one thing I wanted to mention in terms of teaching is evidence is mounting on the importance of face coverings. And we've reached a view that they're so important that we're mandating them in most indoor settings, and that includes teaching. And I know I attend meetings in face coverings. I'm going to be doing teaching myself this term in face coverings. And I know it feels a bit weird at first, but I'm fairly confident that people will adapt. We've given quite a lot of guidance to staff on how to make the best of it. And I think we will settle down to that working well quite quickly. So if you're a bit put off by that in the first instance, I would encourage you to persevere with it. And I think it will be a success. And that brings me to the other thing I just briefly wanted to talk about, which is the health measures we've got in place in Oxford this year. Hopefully by now you're all familiar with our health campaign and can recite the slogan, protect our community, protect the vulnerable, protect yourself. It's in that reason, it's in that order for a reason. I mean, I think a lot of students will be at relatively low risk themselves from COVID, but of course you are interacting in the community with a lot of people who are more vulnerable than yourself. So I think our health campaign is not just about keeping you safe, but it's about your part in keeping the community safe. And we really do want you to take that seriously. So please do follow all the guidance you're given on distancing, on hand washing, on use of face coverings. If you have symptoms, get a test. If you need to isolate, you must do so. And we really do need your cooperation with contact tracing as well. And the really difficult one, I know, is do try to resist the temptation to gather in large groups. We all do it. It's naturally instinctive. When you see a group of people having a chat, you go and join them. It's very difficult to avoid, but do just try and manage that as best you can. And you know, I've talked about our aim to give you an optimal teaching experience in the circumstances. We really need you to help us with that. You know, we want to keep Oxford open as a functioning university with as much personal contact as possible. That's not going to be possible if we get a really large rise in infection within the university community, and we need your help to help us control that. You'll all have seen the headlines from some other universities where there have been very large numbers of cases and restrictions on student movement. We really want to avoid that here if we possibly can. Of course, what's not covered in the media is the more positive angle that a lot of other universities, things are going well. There aren't big outbreaks. Face-to-face teaching is largely proceeding. And I really want that to be the model that happens at Oxford as well. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to pass on to Jan, who I think is going to talk a bit about college life.
I am. Thank you very much indeed, Martin. First of all, I'd like to add my congratulations to everybody who's got to Oxford, but also to the SU, because like Martin, I think this is an amazing initiative to have this brilliant Freshers Week online. I mean, it's just extraordinary. I couldn't quite believe it when I took the tour a couple of days ago. And for me, it's just such a pleasure to see students back in Oxford, because Oxford without students just doesn't feel right. And I know that everybody's having to be more constrained than usual, but it does seem to be sort of a new normal, having all of our students around. And we've got so much to celebrate. Just yesterday, we heard that we, Oxford, had received another Nobel Prize, this time for physics. So I hope that there are many physics students here today who will be just very, very proud, as we all are. So I just want to say a few things. We've been planning the safe return to Oxford for this week for many months, in fact, since May. And the SU have been a huge part of all the discussions. You've been there and you've influenced what we've been saying and doing. Amelia Holt, one of the subs, is a member of the main coordinating group, and Ben and some others are members of the Student Experience Coordination Group. We know that the lockdown was difficult, indeed soul destroying for many young people. And that after 6 structureless months of learning with no exams and no direction, it's time to get back to academic work. You'd spent months working for exams that didn't happen, and then looking forward to a few months of freedom, which didn't happen either, because you couldn't get away, you couldn't get jobs, or you couldn't get your internships. We believed, and we continue to believe, that starting term was hugely important for your studies and your well-being. And in colleges, we've been doing everything possible to provide best practical support, including lots of great college accommodation. Happily, all freshers are able to live in, despite the fact that we've got greater numbers than ever this year. And our dining rooms are all open, as are many of our bars. And some colleges I know have got new bars in marquees on their quads. Our college staff have had to implement the most complex procedures and protocols to keep us safe. And we've got a duty to keep them safe as well. We've been fortunate to learn from the experiences of other universities. As Martin said, they're not all bad experiences, but we've been able to learn because we've come back later than most universities. And within our colleges, we are having and we've had great support from our JCRs and MCRs. So I pay huge tribute to them. They've spent months preparing for Freshers' Week and things as well, and they've done a great job in all of our colleges. But practical support is not enough. And whilst, of course, academic work is of the utmost importance, that's why you're here, you need more than that for your physical and mental well-being and for a good student experience. We've got very good welfare support, but we recognise that these are tough times and there may be a greater number of students than usual who need support. So together with the SU, many of us have been advocating for greater resource, including Martin. And then now at the most senior level in our university, they're talking about the need to focus more on welfare and well-being. And that's what will be happening over the next few weeks. And I'm confident that there will be more resources and we are going to have a positive outcome because everybody recognises the need for the best possible welfare support. As you will know, many university sports have resumed and college sports will soon be underway. Also music, performing arts, clubs and societies. Some of the latter will be remote, as they were successfully last term, but some might be in person. And there's guidance from the Collegiate University about the organisation of sport, performing arts, music, etc., as well as risk assessments that students can use. And the SU has put together some brilliant tips and tricks for student organisations, and I think that they will be invaluable. So thank you, Nikita, to you and your team. All colleges strive to ensure that there's as much parity as possible in the student experience. We want everyone to have a good Oxford experience. It's never easy. For example, some colleges have sports grounds, some do not. But it doesn't stop colleges like my own, like Somerville, participating in all of these sports. And we excel at some. For example, in Hillary, we won the ice hockey cuppers with an amazingly diverse team from different backgrounds and different parts of the world. So even if you haven't got sports grounds and sports facilities, you can excel in sports. This year, some differences have been exacerbated because of the different shapes and sizes of colleges. Some simply can't open their bars because social distancing would be impossible. And there's also the fraught issue of visitors. At LMH and Magdalen, for example, they can have visitors because they've got huge grounds, but colleges in central Oxford don't have a big footprint. so they don't have space for visitors. It's not that they don't want to, it's just physically impossible. At Somerville, we've got a gorgeous quad, but sadly our kitchen had to be renovated and refurbished. So half of our quad is taken up by a temporary kitchen and dining room. So we simply don't have the capacity to welcome visitors. We've said to all of our students and staff, very sorry, but you can't have visitors except for academic purposes, for tutorials and DPhil supervisions. And I think that's the same for many, many colleges. None of this is easy. Colleges will continue to work together for the benefit of our students. And whilst COVID tends to dominate, quite understandably for the moment, we work together on many other issues like sustainability and homelessness. We're all fiercely proud of our students, including some of the amazing voluntary work that you do. And I know that, Ben, you are the volunteering sub, as it were. Last week, we did a meeting with people of Oxford, the citizens of Oxford. And whilst concern was understandably expressed about the return of students, you know, you would be if you were a citizen of Oxford, there was real appreciation of everything that students do to contribute to the life of our city, especially in terms of volunteering. I know that in this fantastic Freshers' Fair, you'll see some incredibly volunteering opportunities, and I hope that you will want to explore those. So yes, there are a lot more rules that we have to respect this term, not just students, but staff as well. But they are there to keep us all safe, to keep our college and university communities healthy. We want you to thrive academically, to be happy and fulfilled, but also safe. So I hope you have a great term. We, the colleges, just like the rest of the university, we're there to support you. We want you to succeed and we want you to be happy. Looking forward to your questions. Over to you, Nikita.
Thanks, Jan. So hello, everyone. First of all, a massive welcome to Oxford and the Freshers' Fair from the Student Union. I am Nikita Ma, so I'm your president of the Student Union for the coming academic year. I use she, her pronouns, and I just finished my second year of PPE at Trinity College. So a fun fact about me, which I probably should mention now, is that I have a cat who lives in Oxford with me, Einstein, who I feel I should mention just in case he passes by the background. I would love to introduce you to him right now, but he's taking a nap, so I guess I can show you this picture of him. So that's my lovely cat who lives with me. So my part of this talk will be about what your student union has been doing in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and more widely, how we can support student life in Oxford in the pandemic. So there are two main things I want you to take away from this. The first being what we have been doing at the student union, and the second being the resources you can access through us. So for the first part, what has the student union been doing? Our job at the student union is to connect students to the university. So there are two aspects to our roles. The first being communicating with students so we can represent them. And the latter part will be communicating with the university as a student voice. On the student side, over the past few months, we have been doing three main things. One, campaigning for the university to honor the offer. So to honor all the offers that have been made, regardless of the grades they ended up with from the off-qual fiasco that happened in the pandemic. The next thing we did was lobbying the university to not use the Iffley Road Sports Centre as a teaching space due to welfare and safety concerns, which I'm very happy to announce that #SaveIffleyRoad was a very successful campaign and it will not be used as a teaching space. The third thing we did was hosting open calls with all students and also specific ones with welfare reps, ENTS reps, freshers reps, and common room presidents to hear from you and your representatives on what your top concerns are. This leads into my next point on the latter part of our work with communicating to the university. So the feedback we received from students in our open calls were used in the lobbying for the collegiate university to consider student welfare and well-being in all its decisions, as Jan mentioned just now, as well as parity across colleges. We wrote an open letter to all the heads of houses of the colleges and PPHs calling for that, and we have received a very reassuring response from the colleges that it will also be very important for them. We also attended university committees, including Michaelmas Coordination Group and Education Committee, to push for the best possible student experience and to ensure that students' educational needs will be met in the pandemic. So this is for the first half of my talk. And the latter part of my section is on how we can continue supporting your student life in the pandemic and the resources you can access at the Student Union. So with regards to student events, we have the virtual Freshers' Fair, which you're at right now, and we have also developed support for students organizing events this academic year. So we have a comprehensive interactive resource on our website for you to complete. So they will teach you things about what to think about when organizing either an online or face-to-face event, along with lots of ideas on how to organize them. We have also developed risk assessment templates for our face-to-face events that you can use for organizing your events. Another part of our work is the advice service. So we have a free and independent and impartial advice service, which is available for all students in need. But I should also emphasize here that our advice service does not offer opinions nor legal advice. So that was a super fast whistle-stop tour of student life at Oxford in a pandemic. We've been working hard to ensure that all students are represented and prioritized in the decisions across the university. So feel free to get in touch with me and my sabbatical team over email, Facebook, or Twitter if you have any questions, concerns, or would just like to know a friendly face in the university, or would just like to meet my cat. And that's about it from me. Shall we get on to questions?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. That's really helpful. And I think we've really covered all the bases there. Yeah, absolutely. As you said, we've got the Q&A function. So if you just head to the bottom and pop in any questions you might have, we will get to them as we go through. So just feel free to send them in and I will share them. We've had some through already, so happy to go through those. I will send them out and then you can choose. Jan, I think perhaps this is your, potentially yourselves or Martin's question. The question is, how does the university intend to develop a fair and consistent approach to compliance with COVID-19 restrictions, especially when there are already discrepancies in approaches and sanctions in various parts of the collegiate system?
In terms of the restrictions, we are trying to be as coherent as possible. As I explained, in terms of visitors, we would love everybody to be able to have visitors, but we simply can't do it. It's not that we don't want to have a coherent policy on visitors, it's just not possible because of the different shapes and sizes of our colleges. But we are aiming to be as consistent as possible. Likewise, when it comes to sort of disciplinary issues, for things like, you know, if you're not wearing your face covering when you should be, or if you're not social distancing, I think that everybody believes that is a matter for individual colleges. We are all autonomous, each college. But when it comes to sort of graver, egregious offences, as it were, then we are wanting to be very coherent and we're working together to ensure that we act in the same or a very similar way. And we will be communicating more and more as a body, the Conference of Colleges, what we intend to do on these things, because we believe that we need to have utmost transparency. That's important for our students, but it's also important for the people of Oxford to show that we're taking these things seriously.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. If you do have any questions, send them through using the Q&A function at the bottom. To keep them coming, and just Q&A and then send them in. Just click the Q&A tab and type them in as you might do with a Zoom chat. Next question is around student events, and maybe another one for you, Jan, and perhaps Nikita, for maybe a lot of people are visiting clubs and societies today, or at the Freshers' Fair, or maybe in their colleges. So maybe what would you say to people who are asking about what kind of events can happen and how they can kind of meet new people? Perhaps Jan, you can say that, and maybe Nikita, you could talk about some aspects of that as well, if that's okay.
How people can meet in colleges, there again, it's sort of largely a matter of the size of the college. Most colleges are doing everything they can to enable small groups of students, clubs and societies and small groups of students to meet in various rooms in colleges, to meet on the quads or whatever, because we recognise that, you know, it's great to do things online and it's very safe to do things online, but sometimes it's good to do things in person. So all colleges are doing whatever they can to enable that sort of interpersonal relationship to thrive between students. And I know that all of our JCRs and MCRs have been working really hard on Freshers' Week to maximise the opportunities for freshers to meet each other. Of course, going outside colleges, usually you'd be able to organise events in parks and that, but as we have to quite rightly respect the rule of 6, that's not so easy this year. So we're trying to do as much as possible inside colleges. And the colleges that I know best are doing that in a magnificent way, but thanks to our JCRs.
That's
Thank you
great.
very much.
So,
Nikita, do you want to go for it?
yeah, definitely. So I'd say the first part of engaging is definitely with the student stalls that you see in the Virtual Freshers Fair. So lots of them will be doing events, some safely in person, and others will be doing online virtual events. So definitely get engaged. Something else that I do think would be good to promote here is RAG. So RAG stands for Raise and Give, and they fundraise for 4 charities that all students elect each year. So yes, you get to choose who RAG donates to. They have a scavenger hunt planned for this Saturday, and it's a great way to get to know Oxford while supporting charities, especially given the pandemic. And you can also go outside for a stroll. Something else we also do at the Student Union would be Student Council. So Student Council is a democratic decision-making body for all students. Normally it's an in-person event, but we've gone online since Trinity term last year because of the pandemic. So all students can attend Student Council, but not all students can vote. Only your representatives can vote, namely the SU campaigns, divisional representatives, and also representatives of your common room. So I definitely say come along to Student Council if you're free. The upcoming meeting is on October 13th, next Tuesday at 5:30. And since all meetings will be online this term, so get a mug of hot chocolate and definitely come along.
Sounds good. Sadly, we can't.
Thank you very much. Another question has come in, and again, maybe one for Nikita, and you touched on it there, but said, how can I benefit from Oxford SU and interact as a student?
Oh, wow. That's a big question because we do a lot of things at the Oxford SU. I'd say since this talk is quite short, definitely head over to the Oxford SU stalls and you can chat to any of our sabbatical officers or just message me at the stall or send me an email. I definitely say one of the most important things we do is representation. So we have divisional representatives, as I mentioned just now, they're your academic representatives. So definitely get in touch with your academic representatives if you have any concerns. And you can also run for student council positions. So student council, as I mentioned just now, is a democratic decision-making body of Oxford. We have quite a few vacancies, so definitely get involved.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And yeah, keep the questions coming, just send them in the Q&A box. And the next one is perhaps for Martin and Jan. What would the university or colleges do in the event of a local lockdown?
Can I just say sorry, Martin, go ahead for the university. Go.
Okay. I think we have, of course, as Jan said earlier, been planning for this for months. We have been planning for starting with as optimal mix as we can of in-person and face-to-face teaching, but every subject has been asked to develop contingency plans for various levels of restrictions being imposed. We maintain very close contact with the public health authorities and with government on what's likely to come. I think all the messages we're getting are that the sort of really full lockdown that we had in sort of March to June is unlikely to come back. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but we are reasonably optimistic that we won't face that level of restriction again, but it is quite likely that we will have more severe restrictions than we've got at present at some point. We have plans in place to cope with that, largely in terms of flipping face-to-face to a greater proportion of online where we need to, but still trying to maintain a level of personal contact, even if it's over an online system such as Teams or Zoom, making sure that you do have the individual contact. I think Jan will probably want to talk about what colleges are doing, but we are very conscious, particularly of when students, while we may not have major lockdowns where groups of students may have to self-isolate on lockdown, we're very conscious of the need for support for those students, for them not to be isolated and to look after their welfare as much as we can.
I think from a college perspective, the most important message is that we will look after you. We will look after individuals who need to self-isolate, households that need to self-isolate, or indeed colleges that need to self-isolate, that need to be locked down. Well, I hope that won't happen, but one has to plan. We've got great contingency plans, which will be rolled out. We will ensure that all your kind of physical needs are looked after, i.e., you know, you're fed, your rubbish is taken away, etc., etc. But most importantly, as Martin said, we will take care of your welfare needs. We'll be there to support you, and we will provide whatever we deem to be necessary, or whatever you think is necessary in terms of welfare support. And I think that's one thing that we have learnt from the experience of other universities. I mean, happily, we already had our plans in place, but some of the stark examples that have come out of other areas of the country have shown that their welfare support hasn't been what it should be, etc., etc. And we are going to provide whatever you need in terms of welfare and physical support.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And then Martin, this one, again, maybe we can combine them into two. So one question is, and again, keep your questions coming, just use the Q&A tab at the bottom to type something in. So a question kind of maybe coordinated with this is, one question is, how long will blended learning continue? And then perhaps kind of linked into that, what are current university plans, or what plans are in place, or what you're currently looking at for Hilary and Trinity terms?
So, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, is my answer to that. How long will blended learning continue? As long as it needs to, I think. I mean, obviously none of us knows how this is going to play out. I mean, I think realistically, we are planning on some form of restrictions being needed for the entirety of this academic year. We're not expecting that we'll be getting back to normal later in the academic year. But that's not to say that things will necessarily stay completely as they are at the start all the way through. I think there will be variations up and down. There may be periods of tighter restrictions where we have to shift the dial a bit to being more heavily remote and less in person. And there may be periods where things relax and we're able to increase the amount of in-person teaching. I think we are in an evolving situation in terms of where we are with the public health response to COVID. There's a lot of talk about the possible availability of a vaccine that might transform things. I think that is going to take quite a long time. Obviously, the Oxford vaccine trial is one of the most advanced in the world. It's looking very promising. But I think even if that comes into fruition, we're talking about that maybe being available in the early part of next year. And then the logistics of rolling a vaccine out to an entire population, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. I'm afraid to tell you that students will not be top of the queue for getting the vaccine, although some of the people who teach you and support you in Oxford might be. So it's not going to be easy for some time. I think that's clear. One thing that may help more immediately than the vaccine is a change in the testing regime, and Oxford has a good testing system available for staff and students already. What we don't have is the sort of mass screening that would be possible if there were a very cheap and easy diagnostic test available. And the reason for that is because we've looked very closely at the cheap diagnostic tests that are available, and they are just too unreliable to be rolled out at scale. So we are hoping that situation will change and we may have a more proactive testing regime in future. We are monitoring that very closely, and that, if it does come in, would enable us to shift the balance a bit more towards a greater proportion of in-person teaching and greater amounts of personal contact. But we are going to have to play it by ear. It's going to remain uncertain for some time, I'm afraid. In terms of planning for Hilary and Trinity terms, that is to an extent underway already. In particular, we are advancing plans for assessment this year. In Trinity term, all our assessment was done online. We didn't have any in-person exams taking place in the exam schools. In the current term, we do have some exams that were postponed from last term taking place, and those are a mix of online exams, and we do have some taking place in person, distanced with safety measures in place in the exam schools. We anticipate that that will be the pattern in the summer as well, that there will be a mix of some distanced COVID secure in-person exams and some remote exams with or alternative assessments submitted online.
Brilliant, thank you very much. A couple of questions, one for Nikita, then one for, well, I'll work out. We can work out the next one is for. The next one is, how do I become a member of the Students' Union or Oxford SU?
That's a great question, and surprise, you are a member of the Students' Union. So by being a member of the university, you're automatically a member of the Students' Union, unless you opt out when you register in the registration you do at the start of the year. Unless you do that, or else you are automatically a member of the Student Union. So welcome.
And it's free, so you do have to pay.
Yeah.
So congrats. Brilliant. Next question is from Dina. What is the university's response to the request for getting rid of the requirement for the residency requirement for international students, as it still has a strict residency requirement?
Martin.
So we do still have the residency requirement in place. It is possible to apply for an exemption. So we do have a number of students starting remotely. We do recognise that for some students it is extremely difficult to get to Oxford. We've been doing a lot of work over the summer supporting students, particularly with our visa service for students who need visas to get to Oxford. We've been making accommodation available early for students who need to get here and go through a period of self-isolation before they start their studies. We have the residency requirement in place because we believe that there are significant benefits to being in Oxford. We don't believe that it's in the best interests of the majority of our students to study online. We know that most of our students want to come to Oxford. We have conducted surveys of all our offer holders, and we know that most of them are trying very hard to get here. But we are not being completely rigid where students have genuine difficulties, where they can't get visas, or where flights are ridiculously expensive and hard to get, or where their governments don't support them travelling. We are allowing exemptions to the residency requirements and enabling those students to study remotely and be supported online. But we hope that even in those cases, they will be able to transition to residential study in Oxford before too long.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Another question has come through. How do students access the university COVID testing service?
It's really easy. If you go into the Oxford University coronavirus site, you'll find an EAS, early alert service. You can just book online. You just go and book online, and I know quite a few students who have booked tests. The tests have come through. I mean, the appointments have come through very rapidly, and the results of the tests come through well within 24 hours. It's a fantastic service. And the great thing about going via the EAS, which is what we must do, is that the EAS, they inform the college, the SPOC in the college, the person who's nominated by the college to receive information. So we know we can support you, we can ensure that the rest of your household has to, if necessary, they self-isolate, etc. It's a brilliant system. And I think that everybody should use the university system if they have symptoms. We should only use the system if we have symptoms. It's important to emphasize that point. If you're feeling just a little bit ill, but you haven't got any of the symptoms, don't book a test. That's probably cold or a normal flu or whatever. But if you've got any of the symptoms or 2 or 3 of the symptoms, then book a test.
Perfect, thank you very much. A question for Nikita, probably our last one. So you have any last minute questions, pop them in. And for our last question here, Nikita, is the SU or Oxford SU the same as Oxford Union?
No, so that's a question we get quite often. So the SU stands for the Student Union, and that's us. The Oxford Union is the debating society. The Oxford Union also has a stall at the Virtual Freshers' Fair, so you can definitely check their stall out as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's all the questions and all the time we have. If anybody else wanted to add anything else, this is your space. Any of the other speakers?
I just think it's been a great pleasure and a privilege to be here with all our freshers this morning. And I just hope you have a great time. But, you know, always go to people like Martin, come to people like me. We're just human beings and we're there to help and support you. So don't feel that we're remote people. We're there for you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Martin, any last remarks from yourself?
No, I just echo what Jan said, that again, congratulations on being an Oxford student. This year is going to be a bit strange, but you know, you are going to have a wonderful time at Oxford, and think about the long term. You know, you're here for most of you for several years, and over those years, it's going to be an amazing experience, and just make the most of it.
I would also say that we really value our relationship with the SU, because it's together that we can make things happen, make things
Brilliant.
better.
Thank you very much. Nikita, anything else from you?
Very sweet. Thank you so much for coming, and definitely get in touch with me or my SAB team over our emails, Facebooks, or Twitter, or just come to the Virtual Freshers Fair stall and we can have a lovely chat.
Yeah, and if you want to talk more to sabbatical officers, stay right where you are, because coming up right after this session at 12 o'clock is the Meet Your Sabbatical Officers Q&A, so you can meet all 6 of us and see what's going on. You've already found the section with our live events on, so that on that page you can see the rest of the schedule for the day. There's lots of events coming up, from drama to sport, to welfare, graduate students, international students, and what more could you want? And as Nikita said, don't forget to visit the rest of the stall. We've got over 250 stalls, so do go and have a look around. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.